Uh, I don't think he saw me for Star Wars until he'd seen every other living actor between the ages of 7 and 35. And then he asked me, and I tested like everybody else.
You'd never guess which stars made Harrison Ford's personal blacklist. At 82, the legendary actor finally revealed the 6 colleagues he couldn't stand working with. From tense on-set moments to clashing personalities, his honesty is as blunt as it is shocking. Buckle up. Ford's confessions about Hollywood's most infamous feuds will leave you speechless. Julia Roberts. Hollywood insiders were genuinely stunned when the highly anticipated romantic project pairing Harrison Ford and Julia Roberts quietly unraveled before production could even begin in earnest. On paper, the combination seemed flawless. 2 of the biggest stars of their generation, each a master of their craft, brought together to explore love, tension, and intimacy on the big screen. Yet what looked like chemistry on paper proved elusive in practice. From the earliest chemistry tests, it became clear that Ford and Roberts operated on fundamentally different wavelengths, 2 distinct energies that refused to synchronize. Harrison Ford's artistry has always relied on restraint. His power often lies not in overt displays of emotion, but in the subtleties of what he withholds. A glance, a pause, the unspoken tension simmering beneath his expressions. Roberts, by contrast, is a force of expressiveness. Her presence radiates emotion, openness, and vulnerability, drawing viewers into the moment with magnetic intensity. When the 2 were placed together, the contrast was stark. Director Mike Nichols, who observed the chemistry sessions firsthand, later remarked that Julia's presence demanded engagement, a responsive energy from her partner, whereas Harrison's power came from silence, from the interior world he carried behind calm eyes. It was, Nichols noted, as if they were speaking entirely different languages. As rehearsals progressed, the disconnect only deepened. Ford's muted reactions left Roberts feeling unsupported, as though her emotional offerings were hitting a wall. Conversely, her full-bodied expressiveness seemed to push Ford further inward, compelling him to retreat to the safety of his own understated method. Every scene became a negotiation, a struggle to find common ground that never materialized. The tipping point arrived during a pivotal romantic scene meant to capture intimacy and vulnerability. Instead of sparks, there was distance. Ford's restraint and Roberts's radiance existed in parallel, failing to intersect. Cinematographer Sven Nykvist later described the absence of chemistry as almost mesmerizing, a striking emptiness that made the disconnect feel palpable even to observers. Ford himself later reflected on the experience with candor. He admitted that he often felt as though he was responding to a performance rather than a partner, engaged with a version of Julia Roberts crafted for the screen rather than the woman standing beside him. Roberts, for her part, reportedly found Harrison emotionally unreachable, his inwardness leaving her unsure how to connect. Attempts to adjust or compromise were subtle, yet insufficient. The fundamental divide in their approaches could not be bridged by effort alone. Mel Gibson. The most consequential conflict of Harrison Ford's career didn't revolve around acting technique, performance, or creative differences. It revolved around principle. The potential collaboration with Mel Gibson became a lightning rod, a test of Ford's boundaries and convictions in an industry often willing to excuse volatility in the name of box office. While studios, producers, and fans speculated on the excitement of pairing 2 Hollywood titans, Ford's focus was on the environment such a pairing would create, a space where professionalism, respect, and the psychological safety of cast and crew were paramount. As discussions of potential projects progressed, Gibson's public controversies and unpredictable offset behavior loomed large. Ford, whose career has been defined by preparation, discipline, and a steady commitment to collaborative work, found the atmosphere increasingly difficult to navigate. He was known for valuing not just craft, but the conditions under which craft could thrive. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer later reflected that Harrison operated from a moral baseline, a code of conduct that prioritized respect, stability, and ethical responsibility. In Gibson's presence, maintaining that baseline proved challenging. Rumors of incendiary statements, erratic behavior, and volatile interactions with crew members created a climate of tension that extended far beyond rehearsals and performances. Ford's concerns were not theoretical. As Gibson's controversies began affecting casting decisions and participation from other actors and crew, the implications became concrete. Scenes that should have been defined by story and character were now complicated by the ripple effects of off-screen conduct. The psychological burden on colleagues, combined with the risk of alienating collaborators, became impossible to ignore. Eventually, Ford chose to act. He voiced his concerns directly to studio leadership, framing the issue not as an artistic disagreement but as a matter of ethics. Insiders described the decision as decisive and rare, an actor of Ford's stature publicly drawing a line in the sand over morality and respect, rather than over creative interpretation. Ford reportedly stated that he could not participate in a production where the conduct of a co-star threatened the dignity and safety of those on set. It was a principled stand, one rooted not in ego or rivalry, but in the fundamental belief that professionalism encompasses behavior as much as talent. Studios recognized the clarity of his stance. The decision ended any possibility of collaboration, but it reinforced a standard that Ford has carried throughout his career. Integrity matters as much as skill, and no potential blockbuster is worth compromising human decency. Tommy Lee Jones. When Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones first came together on the set of The Fugitive, audiences were captivated by the electric tension that sizzled on screen. Ford's Dr. Richard Kimball, meticulous, focused, and quietly determined, collided with Jones's U.S. Marshal Samuel Gerard, a whirlwind of intensity and unpredictability. Their performances created cinematic gold, but behind the camera, the dynamics between the two men were far more complicated. The same tension that enthralled viewers also made collaboration a persistent challenge, revealing the contrasting philosophies of two masters at the height of their craft. Ford's approach to acting had always been rooted in precision. He constructed each scene deliberately, carefully plotting emotional beats, pacing, and physicality. His preparation was methodical, a blueprint that allowed him to inhabit a character with consistency and clarity. Jones, by contrast, thrived on the improvisational, on-the-fly recalibration of a scene. Every take offered a new opportunity to reshape dialogue, timing, or delivery, keeping not only the audience on edge, but his co-stars and the crew constantly alert. Director Andrew Davis later likened Jones's approach to jazz, fluid, spontaneous, and ever-shifting, in stark contrast to Ford's structured cadence that required stability to maintain emotional continuity. As filming progressed, the interplay between these approaches created subtle but mounting friction. Ford found himself forced into constant recalibration, adjusting to unexpected line deliveries, altered pauses, and shifts in rhythm. Scenes that were carefully choreographed became exercises in adaptation. Even simple interactions, walk-and-talk sequences, exchanges of critical dialogue, demanded heightened focus, draining energy that might otherwise have been devoted to character immersion. Crew members noticed the tension, describing moments where timing disagreements turned into quiet debates over pacing, blocking, and professional courtesy. The tunnel confrontation sequence, one of the film's most iconic moments, exemplified the challenge. Ford had rehearsed every nuance, anticipating precise timing, movement, and emotional beats. Jones, however, reshaped the rhythm with each take, throwing Ford's meticulous preparation into disarray. It wasn't hostility, it was a collision of creative philosophies, an unavoidable clash between precision and improvisation. Both men respected each other deeply, acknowledging the brilliance the other brought to the screen. but admiration alone could not erase the strain caused by incompatible working styles. Despite the challenges, the tension between Ford and Jones became part of the film's vitality, lending authenticity and urgency to their on-screen confrontations. Yet behind the scenes, it was a lesson in the complexities of collaboration at the highest level. Even two artists of immense skill and dedication can find their rhythms at odds, demonstrating that excellence does not automatically yield harmony. Kevin Costner. The story of Harrison Ford and Kevin Costner's failed Western collaboration has since become something of a cautionary tale, quietly whispered in Hollywood development offices as a reminder that even the biggest stars can falter when artistic visions clash. At the time, both men approached the project with the intensity of artists determined to leave a definitive mark on the genre. Ford, already a master of subtlety and psychological depth, saw the Western as an opportunity to explore the inner toll of violence, the moral ambiguities that haunt a man shaped by conflict. Costner, by contrast, envisioned the film as a grand epic, a cinematic tapestry of sweeping landscapes, mythic heroism, and historical spectacle. On paper, the combination promised cinematic greatness. In practice, it proved combustible. Pre-production quickly revealed the depth of their divergence. Producer Lawrence Kasdan observed that although both actors had read the same script, they imagined entirely different films. Ford's vision was intimate, character-driven, and contemplative. Costner's was expansive, kinetic, and rooted in spectacle. The script became a battleground, with each revision reflecting not collaborative thinking, but the elevation of one actor's priorities over the others. Ford requested changes that deepened the psychological complexity of his character, highlighting moral nuance and internal conflict. Costner pushed for alterations that expanded the scope of his role, emphasizing heroism and grandeur. As notes and counter-notes piled up, the process grew increasingly adversarial, with little room left for compromise. Screenwriter William Goldman later described the development period as a downward spiral, noting that each attempt to reconcile their differences only amplified tension. Meetings that might have fostered collaboration instead became exercises in negotiation and subtle power plays. The breaking point came during one particularly heated development session. Ford, frustrated by what he perceived as a superficial treatment of character motivation, openly questioned Costner's understanding of the psychological stakes at the story's core. Costner's response was equally pointed. He accused Ford of turning a Western, a genre defined by action, myth, and landscape, into a therapy session. The retort was sharp, irreconcilable, and definitive. By the end of that meeting, the partnership was over. Shia LaBeouf. The generational divide in Hollywood often simmers beneath the surface, but on the set of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it erupted in full view. Harrison Ford, already an icon of cinematic discipline, found himself paired with Shia LaBeouf, a young actor known as much for his unpredictable energy as for his talent. What seemed, on paper, a standard mentor-protege dynamic quickly revealed itself to be something far more combustible. This was not merely a difference in acting technique, it was a philosophical clash over what acting could and should be. Ford's approach was as precise as a Swiss watch. He meticulously studied every line, movement, and beat of a scene, treating the production like a finely engineered machine. Efficiency, restraint, and professional consistency were his guiding principles. To Ford, every take was an exercise in controlled expression. Every moment on camera had a purpose and a limit. LaBeouf, by contrast, approached performance with almost anarchic devotion to emotional truth. His method was immersive, impulsive, and unafraid of risk. He experimented with gestures, tone, and improvisation in ways that felt spontaneous and occasionally destabilizing. The two approaches, while admirable in isolation, collided almost immediately. From the very first rehearsals, the tension was palpable. LaBeouf's tendency to deviate from the script frustrated Ford, whose exacting methodology left little room for improvisation. Stunt coordinator Vic Armstrong later described the divide succinctly. Harrison approached scenes like mechanical blueprints while Shia treated them like emotional excavations. Each actor believed entirely in his own method, and neither could bend to accommodate the other. Where Ford saw discipline, LaBeouf saw rigidity. Where LaBeouf saw emotional honesty, Ford perceived chaos. As production progressed, LaBeouf's immersive style began to ripple beyond his own scenes. His improvisations disrupted camera blocking, timing, and even the work of other actors. What was meant to be a shared cinematic rhythm became, in Ford's eyes, a liability. The tension reached its peak during a pivotal father-son moment, a scene central to the emotional core of the film. LaBeouf, feeling the scene, strayed from the pre-planned dialogue, forcing Ford to halt the take entirely. Witnesses described the exchange as calm yet absolute, a silent but unmistakable assertion of authority. Ford's presence on set was always commanding, but this was a moment where the veteran established a boundary. Passion could not come at the expense of order. After filming wrapped, producer Frank Marshall reportedly reinforced Ford's stance. Commitment had limits. Chaos was not an acceptable cost. Crew members noted that Ford seemed visibly lighter once the LaBeouf segments were completed, as though a storm had passed, leaving behind exhaustion and relief in equal measure. Sean Young's few professional experiences in Harrison Ford's storied career left as deep a mark as his time on Blade Runner with Sean Young. On paper, the pairing promised cinematic electricity. Ford, the seasoned screen veteran known for his grounded performances, and Young, a rising talent celebrated for her striking intensity, playing the enigmatic replicant Rachel. Yet what began as the pursuit of artistic excellence quickly spiraled into one of the most challenging collaborative dynamics Ford had ever encountered. It was more than a clash of acting styles. It was a collision of psychological approaches, boundaries, and personal temperament that would leave lasting impressions on both actors. Sean Young's commitment to the role was extraordinary, perhaps to the point of obsession. She rarely stepped outside of Rachel, even between takes, maintaining an unwavering emotional state that extended into her off-camera presence. Ford, in stark contrast, operated with clear demarcation. Once the cameras stopped rolling, so did the performance. He believed in compartmentalization, in leaving the weight of the character behind to preserve his own mental and emotional equilibrium. From the earliest days on set, this difference created tension that was subtle but pervasive. Director Ridley Scott later remarked that there were moments when Harrison could not tell if he was speaking to the actor or the replicant, and the ambiguity unnerved him. The line between performance and reality had been blurred, leaving Ford off balance in ways that went beyond ordinary co-star friction. As filming progressed, the intensity of Young's method acting began to spill over, affecting not only the scenes themselves, but the rhythm of the entire production. Her emotional immersion made it difficult for Ford to predict reactions, follow cues, or gauge the atmosphere of a scene. Even crew members noticed the strain. Cinematographer Jordan Cronin described their on-screen chemistry as the most awkward he had ever witnessed on a professional set, noting that it was tinged with tension that could not be concealed behind the lens. Intimate scenes, in particular, became flashpoints as Young's forceful presence left Ford visibly tense, struggling to maintain both performance integrity and personal composure. Ford later reflected on the experience with candor. He admitted that working with Young felt less like collaboration and more like navigating a psychological battlefield. Every interaction required careful negotiation of space, emotion, and intention. The intensity of her commitment highlighted in sharp relief Ford's own philosophy of acting. Dedication should enhance the scene, not compromise the comfort and agency of those involved. The Blade Runner set became a proving ground for his belief that professionalism encompasses not only craft, but also mutual respect. What do you think about the actors that Harrison Ford hates? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.